Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and welcome back to another hump day. Joining me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all of our listeners. I have a really fun, naughty joke for you.
Hit me.
Why did the sperm cross the road?
What? You said sperm?
Sperm, yeah.
Okay, I'm making sure I heard you correctly.
The little squiggly thing.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Okay.
Is it because I walked across the road? I don't know.
I mean, technically, yes. Then all of you would go across the road.
There you go.
But it's because you put the wrong sock on this morning.
Ew. No. That is not what they want to hear. You've won. Today you grossed me out.
Officially.
For new listeners, Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some food for that.
So Voyse,
Damas.
we have some new shoutouts to make.
We do. And this is quite a unique one, actually. I think they're actually related or connected in some way. Welcome to the Tea Club, the Hippo's Hummingbird, and the Hummingbird's Hippo.
Okay, I can see where you might get that. Do we have our first couple?
I think either this is couple or siblings. I'm not sure, but I feel like couple. I'm curious.
Those are cute names. I like them.
They are very adorable. I love them.
Can I be the Hippo's Hippo?
Well, Damas, you're getting water today.
As always.
Stay hydrated. Hydration Wednesdays.
Yay.
So while you go ahead and enjoy your canteen of water, why don't we go ahead and delve into these stories? For any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below.
Stay hydrated.
For our first story, am I the a-hole for giving up on working from home because my wife kept interrupting my meetings? I work in the medical field. I often discuss confidential information with clients and doctors. I am not a doctor myself. In July of this year, I finally had an opportunity for employment that would give me the option of working from home. I sat down with my wife and explained that this was a good thing for us. I would be home 3 more days every week. I would still be going into the office on Tuesday and Thursday, but the other days I could skip out on the commute. I could help with my daughter in the morning and throughout the day. I could help with supper. I could see my 4-year-old daughter more. Not all the time, of course. I was still going to be working, but our car would be home 3 extra days. My wife could take our car and drop off our daughter from our parents or a sitter if she needed. We say and talked to my daughter and explained that even though I was home, I could not spend all my time with her. I explained that if the door was closed, she needed to knock quietly and ask permission to come in, and to accept it if the answer was no. My daughter understood. My wife did not. She was constantly coming into the office when I was in meetings. I had to excuse myself to get her out of the room. More than once, I saw my daughter trying to keep her out of my room. One time, my wife was trying to carry my daughter into the room, and my kid was holding onto the door jamb so she didn't get in trouble for coming in when the door was closed. I finally put a lock on the door. She said she didn't like being locked out of a room in her house. I explained that the door being closed and a sign saying that I was in a meeting didn't stop her. She finally got the point, until this Thanksgiving. I was working on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and she needed to buy something for our meal the next day, and for some reason could not take our daughter with her, or drop her off with either set of grandparents, or a drop-in daycare where we have a spot. She instead decided to shake my locked door and knock until I answered. I muted my meeting, opened the door, and told her to leave me alone until the end of the day. She left and texted that my daughter was watching TV in the other room. I talked to my boss and went back to work at my workplace starting last week. I hate being away from my daughter and my wife. My wife hates being limited to using Uber on the days I'm not home, or depending on our parents. Now she is mad at me for going back to the office. I told her that it's her fault for not understanding that I was working from home, not just playing games in my home office. I feel like an a-hole, and she says I am, but I am the sole breadwinner of our family. If I got laid off because of her, we would be in financial hardship. Am I the a-hole? Just so that you're aware, this was posted a year ago.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of an older post, but
I mean, it's still relevant. There's a lot of people who work from home still.
Correct.
But that's the key word that people who don't work from home don't hear. Work. All a lot of people hear is home. I would argue it's a little more difficult for some people to work from home because they do have all the
At-home
pressures,
distractions.
of what being at home means. Because people do believe that they can just barge into a room during a meeting or whatever you're doing and proceed to grab your attention. I can't tell you how many people I've heard through, the pandemic and everything when work did shift to home for a lot of folks, how they had regretted and did not like that situation that they were put in. For some people, it's a dream scenario, but for others, it could not have been more nightmarish. For this OP, I think that's what it's turned into. What's funny is the 5 or 6-year-old, 4 understands the simple ask just to knock. It's not to lock someone out or keep people from coming in. It's to be courteous because work is happening. For some reason, your 4-year-old understands that, but your wife is an adult and does not understand what boundaries look like, because that's what this story comes down to for me. And on top of all that, I think he says he puts a sign on the door that says when he's in a meeting, just to hedge his bets. If you can't understand the hints that you've been given and you repeatedly keep crossing the line, why are you shocked that someone had to resort to going back to work to make sure that they keep their job? There are a lot of people who enjoy working from home. And if you enjoy working from home, you have to actually work. That was an adjustment for Voyse and I. We had to learn that when each other was doing stuff, if there's a meeting going on or if there's focus time, because that's literally how blocks of time are sequestered in our house, focus time. You have to let that person have that. I can't imagine people busting in on meetings all the time. Now, I know people kind of look past that at the beginning, especially when working from home was started, 4 or 5 years ago, to be a more normal thing. People gave a grace period for when family and friends or who have you pop in. Dogs. Our German Shepherd, Isla, every time she hears Voyse on a meeting during the day, she will not touch this squeaky toy all day long. But if she hears Voyse in a meeting, she will go find that toy and squeak it right behind her chair.
Every time. It drives me crazy because, and here's the crux of it. The people in the meeting can't hear it, but I can.
Puts a smile on my face. We try. She does. Because the second that meeting's done, drops the toy, doesn't have anything else to do with it. But even then, we have to take measures. If we know something's coming up, dogs can't be in the room. I'm sorry that your wife couldn't understand what a boundary was, and it resulted in you having to spend more time at work. That sucks, especially because there's not a whole lot of people that get afforded that opportunity today. Work from home is slowly starting to drip away from people. How sad. And I don't believe you're the a-hole in any way.
So the consensus on Reddit was our OP's not the a-hole. For many Redditors, they said working from home is just that. Work, but from home. The fact that OP's wife wasn't understanding those boundaries when someone said to stop, that's the real problem here. Now, there were a lot of Redditors that came out and said, you can use a spray bottle to squirt her away.
Don't do that.
This actually brought an edit from our OP regarding this. And they said, edit, why are people messaging me about a spray bottle? She's not a cat.
That could bring some humor if you did it correctly, I believe, but only like the one time, and you'd have to get it the second she walked in the room. Bad. If you were that type of couple and you understood your humor, I could see that, but...
Yes. So this actually brings us to our next post.
Oh?
Because I was looking through the comments, and the reason why people were bringing this up was because of another AITA post, which I'll read shortly, but our OP does say, thanks for the information about the other post. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to buy a second car.
That makes sense. I was going to lead into why it is they only have one car, but financials are different for everybody. That's not for me to guess, but if that opens up the door to making life a little bit easier, that's a good way to go.
And I also agree. So let us go into this next story and see what you think about, as you have already suspected, a squirt bottle. Am I the a-hole for using a squirt bottle for cats on my nephew? My nephew, Michael, just finished his sophomore year and is 15 years old. Due to circumstances that I would rather not discuss on Reddit, I am Michael's legal guardian at the moment. The only real issue I've had with Michael is the fight to get him out of bed every morning on time for school. I made him set an alarm on his phone, but he just about always would turn it off and then sleep in. I would try putting Ravioli, my cat, on his chest, but Michael would just swat her away. I learned that my sister would oftentimes let Michael lay in until it was 11, then drop him off at school and lie that she had car troubles so it would be an excused late arrival. It took me throwing off his blankets and physically dragging him out of bed by his foot for Michael to get up. I was running late for work one morning, and Michael was refusing to get up again. I didn't have time to drag Michael out of bed, and I told him this. Michael was not budging, so I grabbed a squirt bottle that I used to house train my cats, filled it in the tank, and then squirted Michael with it until he got up. He got out of bed and ran to the bathroom in under 30 seconds, a huge improvement from 10 minutes of playing tug of war with Michael. I started to use the spray bottle every morning until he actually started using his alarm and getting up on time. I and Michael were visiting my cousin Lucinda, and Michael made a joke like, "I don't want Uncle Sean to spray me again." Lucinda asked for elaboration, then scolded me on the way home, saying that using the squirt bottle was demeaning to Michael and that I'm treating my nephew like an animal. I don't see it that way at all. I simply can't drag him out of bed every morning. If we were both a decade younger, it might be possible, but Michael's 15 and a big kid at that. Plus, now he's getting up on his own. Am I the a-hole for using a squirt bottle for cats on Michael?
Well, I'm trying to put myself in the position of our OP. Our kid never had those problems. The second we started having bedtimes and wake up times, we talked through those things and we never actually had problems with any of it.
No, he gets up like right on time. He goes to sleep right on time. I've never even had to worry about him staying up late trying to sneak TV or phone time.
We always told him he's allowed to do what he wants to do. Just make sure you do it in the proper times.
Get enough sleep and then you can have fun later.
You can fit in everything you want to do. That's how we've always explained it. So I can't identify with that level of having to teach someone, but OP outlines it. That's his nephew. And he didn't grow up with him. He grew up with a mother that would constantly, or consistently anyway, let the kid show up at school at 11 o'clock. I don't know why, but blaming it on car troubles when it's not, and you giving your son that type of value, I guess, or habit is more closely.
I think that's a much better one.
By 11 o'clock, you've missed 1 or 2 classes, sometimes 3, depending on how the school hours are broken down. So I would wonder exactly what it is or how he's doing academically or what our sleep habits are like. Maybe I'll get into a stickler part of me because we were always very poignant about how sleep comes first.
It is so healthy for your brain to get enough rest. For
development, all of it, everything, all your choices. It really does affect you not having enough sleep.
The thing is, now the uncle has had that corrected, even if it is in a little bit of an unconventional way.
Would we do that to our son if it got to that type of extreme?
Do you want my honesty?
I mean, I don't know.
I would.
But the thing is, we've always been very straightforward in how we've explained things and why we do the things we do.
Correct. But if they were having a hard time learning, and for me, it's all about learning things in different ways. For me, that would be a fun, different way to do it.
Sure. I don't think it's with malice. He didn't say he was dumping water onto the kid and it's like ice cold water first thing in the morning. I highly doubt those things.
No, it's just a little spray. Just, wake up. It's no different than if you have that first hit of cold and you're like, oh my goodness, time to get up and go. I would use that unconventional way because it would be so different and out of the norm, and it would be something fun to talk about later on.
I think as long as it's done in a respectful way, there's a place for it. There are many different ways to teach kids things that aren't abusive. And I guess if I'm making sure I'm understanding it correctly, I don't believe this falls under abuse.
If anything, I feel like should Michael come back and say, hey, what you're doing to me, Uncle Sean, is making me feel like I'm less than or as if I'm some animal, then I think our OP would have to take a step back. But as long as Michael doesn't seem to be having this problem and hasn't put out any of those warning signs, I don't personally find it to be demeaning at all. As I said, my father had very unusual ways to teach me things. And a lot of the times it was me having to walk into it, him watching me walk into it to make sure that I was safe, but then him laughing and saying, this is why you do it this way.
If I'm really thinking about it, my dad would come into the room and he would sing, belt out something from the Marine Corps first thing in the morning at like 5 o'clock to wake me up. So that way I was awake for my siblings. So to get everyone ready for school and stuff like that. So that was my introduction to waking up on time. But I think it also helps when you're a morning person. Our son is definitely a morning person.
Oh, yeah.
He's a task manager. He goes down a list of what it is he has to do for the day and knocks all, like, it doesn't really matter what it is. He's always been that type of person. But I also understand we've got lucky with our son. Things hadn't been that difficult compared to other stories of other parents. But
blessed.
Blessed. But I guess, in my opinion, as long as it's not coming from a point of abuse and it's not something that's being used as like torture, you're teaching the kid better habits. They obviously didn't do well with being told to wake up on time, but now it sounds like they're already waking up. It maybe only took a few times to get him to use his alarm. There's not really an excuse to be getting up late, especially when you're in school.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. The gist of it was, it seems like a pretty humane way of training large animals. I mean, nephews. Additionally, for a lot of Redditors, it says, if the nephew doesn't have a problem with it, then there really shouldn't be any problem with it. And he seems to find the humor in all of it, to even be making jokes. I also have to side with that. I know that there are a lot of individuals that would
abuse that.
Not just abuse that, but would take it as an insult as well. And the thing is, everybody's allowed to feel that. The same way as you and I, you might, depending on context, not feel like that's okay. For me, because of how I've always been raised with that sense of humor and in that there's a funny way to learn things, even if it's walking into your mistake, because the best way that you can learn is the most unique ways ever. What unique way to learn to get up in the morning than to know you're going to get a little spritz in the face if you don't get up at time.
I think it's a funny way to talk to other family members, though, because I think it happened at like an aunt's house.
A cousin. They were at a cousin's when they were talking about this.
It's funny because I can imagine him going, look, if I don't do that, it gets the hose again.
I find it funny because when you said that your dad came into your room belting out a Marine song, my father would wake me up, and he'd do it two ways. He'd start with his morning. It was like a morning jingle. Every morning, that same jingle. I remember it to this day. And every morning when I get up, I start that jingle in my head. I don't know why. But the second part of him waking me up, if I did not respond to that, was that he would tickle my feet. And nothing gets me up faster and gets me moving quite as quick as if someone tickles my feet.
I can confirm this.
The thing is, I know that if I told my father to stop, he would stop.
Yeah.
Right? Because then he knew that he had my attention. And therefore, I need to make the next steps. Anything aside from that would be me blatantly ignoring him. And then I was being disrespectful. But I know that if I were to tell my father that something made me uncomfortable, he would stop. And I think that's the important takeaway from this. As an adult, when you're trying to teach something, especially something that's a little bit unconventional, if you're being told by anyone younger than you or who you're teaching that something makes them uncomfortable, take that to heart.
Agreed.
By the way, there's cat tax on ravioli. Would you like to see?
I was going to say, I love that cat name.
Ravioli?
I had a cat named Spaghetti. So
Spaghetti and ravioli.
Let's see. Oh, ravioli cute. He looks like he's having a good time sleeping.
It's the best. Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about selling a house to get rid of some kids. Am I the a-hole for selling my house to get rid of my stepchildren? My wife passed away in November of 2022. She left me with 3 adult stepchildren who have all been very clear that I am not their parent despite being in their lives for over 10 years. Their father has retired to the Philippines. They are 21, 22, 25. Their mother and I have been helping them out with a place to live because our city is very high cost of living. The youngest is in school still, but the other two are employed. After their mother passed away, they stopped doing anything around the house. We have been charging no rent, so they could save money. The older two are responsible for their own bills other than that. I paid power, water, internet, all the utilities. We even provided food for the youngest. Now they do nothing to help around the house. I have had to hire a cleaning lady to help. It's stupid. So I put the house up for sale. The price has gone up so much since I bought it that I could retire to the Philippines if that was my thing. It took no time at all to sell, and I'm moving out to my cabin. I gave each kid $10,000 and told them that the house was sold. They aren't idiots. They had seen the for sale sign and been around for the open houses. Now they are getting upset with me for throwing them out of their home. I guess they did some of their growing up there, but they never treated it like much more than a place to sleep. I think that their mom would be disgusted with how they treated me and our home. They pooled their money and got an apartment, but if they count on only the money I gave them, they will have nothing in a year. Am I the a-hole?
I guess we'll get into this story. We got an OP who lost his wife 2 years ago.
Correct.
Based off I think it was 2022. That sucks. I'm very sorry to hear it. He says that despite being in the lives of his stepchildren for over 10 years, that they treat him like, I guess, more like a roommate, landlord, even though they're not contributing at all to the situation. So it's even less than a landlord.
Correct.
I wonder why there's such a disconnect there, especially when someone's been in your life for that long. I'm not certain as to the relationship that they have and what he's cultivated in that home. It was his home that he bought. That's why he was able to go ahead and sell this without any type of recourse.
But for the kids, they said, well, since we've essentially been here for the past 10 years, this is like our family home now.
Yeah. In which you could see where they think that, but legally they have no stake in here.
Additionally, if you're not even caring about taking care of the home that you're living in,
yeah, he
is
says
it really a home?
It's just a place for them to sleep, but you're not contributing. You're adults. At this point, I think everyone's above 21.
Correct.
He does say one of them is in school, so at least he's aware of that, but this is the truth. You're all adults. You have apparently no connection with your stepfather. You treat it like a crash pad. You're not paying rent. You have jobs. There's something missing here. He says they're only covering their bills, which I'm guessing is probably just car insurance and a phone. Because see, had they all just kicked in a little bit, no one's having these problems, and all of you are saving more. Far more.
Even
Steve or whatever.
Even if it's just, hey, Steve, we're going to go ahead and chip in this money so that you can bring in a maid because we don't like to clean.
I think some people forget that they need to be contributing in a meaningful way outside of, just their presence.
That's what makes it a home.
So, OP, in my opinion, you're not the a-hole.
So the consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. In fact, a lot of Redditors said that OP is being way more generous than they would be.
He left them with 10K.
Literally gave them $10K each just to help them find their own way. The fact that he did that, he didn't have to owe them not selling his home, especially if they weren't contributing to anything. Live your life and be happy. They're adults. They'll figure out their own way. And I have to agree with the sentiments of Redditors and you, Damas. They are adults. If you can't find it in yourself to like someone, that's your choice. But they don't owe you anything after a certain point. As an adult, you need to find your way. And I think there are a lot of individuals who feel as if they are an onus. And I think our OP feels bad because this is his late wife's children and he wants to respect her. And that could be another reason why he even gave them $10,000 each. If anything, for me, that shows that he really did care. Even if they didn't have a relationship, he cared about those kids enough to say, here, have this. I need for you guys to figure your own way out because this is being sold and I'm moving on with my life now. Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about a potential wedding and a birthday clashing. Am I the a-hole for suggesting that my brother and his fiancée bring out a cake at midnight on their wedding day for our grandma's 80th birthday? My older brother is getting married to his partner on July 20th, a date they agreed on in January and shared with the family. July 21st is our grandma's 80th birthday. She comes from a long line of women where none of them live past the age of 80. So it's a big deal for her. And she announced last year that she wanted to go all out with a weekend-long celebration. When my brother announced his wedding date, she was the first one to react with kindness, considering he forgot all about her 80th birthday plans when deciding upon the wedding date. They had made several down payments before announcing, so there was no point in asking them to move the wedding a week before or later for Grandma. And Grandma wouldn't allow it. She ultimately decided to have a relaxing, low-key Sunday dinner because my brother and his fiancée also want to have a post-wedding brunch that day for relatives and the bridal party. My mom and I got to talking, and we thought it would be super fun if, at midnight, us grandkids would surprise Grandma with a cake and have the band play her favorite song so we could share a dance with her. It seemed like a fun way to include such an important milestone into the celebratory weekend, since she was giving up her big birthday bash in favor of the wedding. I called my brother immediately to share the idea with him, and he loved it. He even came up with the idea to make the cake England-themed because Mom and I are taking her to England in September as our gift. It's a lifelong dream of hers to go. That is, he loved it until he didn't. Meaning until he spoke with his fiancée. He called to say the cake deal for Gran was off, and that same night I received a text from his fiancée telling me I should have checked with her first if she would be okay with it, and how I was being insensitive, rude, and selfish for meddling with her special day. Yes, her special day. Not my brother's special day or their special day, her special day. She really seems like a good person, and we get along well despite not being super close, but it seemed logical to me to contact my brother since it's also his wedding, and it's his grandma, not hers. I responded back by saying it was my brother's special day as well, and how he was initially thrilled by the idea. I also told her I didn't appreciate her accusing me of meddling, since both Mom and I have fully respected the fact that she planned the entire wedding with her mom, leaving us out of the loop, despite my parents paying for a portion of the wedding. My mom was bummed about being fully excluded, even though all she would have wanted was to know how everything was going. The wedding reception is scheduled to end at 2 a.m., and by midnight, she'll already have been the center of attention. It's not like someone is going to jump out of her wedding cake and propose to another person. My text was met with a phone call from my brother, who basically told me the conversation is over and I've overstepped my boundaries. Am I the a-hole?
No. I initially, when you read me the title, thought maybe we were dealing with them taking the wedding cake and using it as the birthday cake. That's the only way I would have been insulted in this situation, right? Because wedding cakes are expensive.
Oh, yes.
But that's not what this is. They were just having an English-themed wedding cake made for their grandmother to celebrate her 80th. Bring everyone in, have a band play for them.
Just one song.
How cool is that? On her 80th, when they've already given the history on it, why is that fighting against someone else's wedding and taking away attention?
So I must say, I find a few things peculiar, and let me point them out just in case you potentially missed it or there might be some confusion here.
Detective Voice on the case.
So first things first, her grandmother's birthday is on July 21st.
Okay.
The wedding starts July 20th. And when I mean it starts because from what she was saying inside the post is they would have this reception that would continue on till 2 a.m. Okay. That's a really long reception, by the way, for a wedding, to have it go throughout like the entire afternoon till 2 a.m. But then on top of that, on Grandma's birthday, they would have a brunch reception. In my mind, I'm wondering why you need so much going on for this wedding. Generally, weddings are you have this ceremony, you have the reception after the ceremony, and then the honeymooners go off.
Yeah.
But in this case, it is you're having the ceremony, you have this really long reception, and then the next day on Grandma's birthday, you're also going to have another reception?
Well, people can have the weddings they want to, and I get the oddness of that planning. But if you are going to eat up that much time, and you know it is on the day before your grandmother's 80th, why can't you just put aside that? Because you're already at the reception, right? they're saying till 2 a.m. So you couldn't have taken a little bit of time at the reception at 12 a.m. because they wanted to do it at midnight. It's already set up. I guess I'll go about it like this. It is your day. You shouldn't have to be forced into feeling like you've got to give someone attention on the day you've planned. Having the feelings about not wanting to share your spotlight with someone, I can fully understand. As the bride, you're allowed to have that. Your reaction to it, the way you went about handling that situation was wrong. I do want to ask, does OP fight against the answer? I'm not sure if I heard that in there. Does she feel owed this plan for her grandmother?
Actually, in one of OP's comments, they said I was respectful of the answer. He called and said no, and I was like, whatever, not thrilled. It felt like she was shooting the shot just to see what they'd get. And once she heard the answer, while it wasn't what she was hoping for, she was like, all right, I think the real, I guess you could say the real issue that ignited the fuse of this was the bride coming after her
turning
brother
it up
said
to 100
no.
and being like, you're taking my
You
day
should have
away.
asked me.
Yeah. So I guess given all of that, in my opinion, I believe that our OP is not the a-hole for the idea, for asking the question. I don't think there's something wrong with that. I mean, that's all they're asking, right?
Yeah. They just said they're asking, suggesting if that would be good, that they didn't decide to just do this without someone's permission.
Now you'd be very wrong if you rolled out a cake at midnight at the reception.
Surprise!
We're doing this birthday. Sing the song. That would be wrong. But no, I don't think you're wrong for coming up with a very unique and fun way to celebrate your grandma's 80th birthday. I'm sorry that it couldn't happen, but I also understand if someone tells you no on their day that at least you're able to be mature enough to accept it. The good thing for you guys is I hope you were able to figure out another plan for your grandmother, because just because that one fell through doesn't mean you can't have the people that were at that reception come and go to another situation at midnight and sing your grandmother a happy birthday.
So the consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. In fact, a lot of Redditors came out saying OP had the right to ask, but to have this really dramatic, over-the-top reaction, it's oddly controlling, especially if the bride is trying to funnel all decisions directly to her only, and it's not something that is between both the groom and the bride to decide. It kind of spells a very questionable relationship there. I also have to point out that I feel very sorry for our OP's mom. If the OP's parents are chipping in money for the wedding and they're not being included in anything, that feels very off as well for me. Why would you not at least include someone in the plans? They don't have to make the decisions. You can hear suggestions, but hearing suggestions doesn't mean you have to be forced into anything.
Very true.
Now, our OP actually has an update regarding this whole thing, so let's get into it. For the update, the wedding is off.
What?
After the conflict between me and my brother's former fiancée, which resulted in a phone call from my brother, I decided to text her 3 days later to apologize. Even though my family and the internet sided with me, I just didn't want any bad mojo or to be a sister-in-law from hell. My text was met with a lot of anger on my dad's behalf, which really surprised me because the man supports me no matter what. He was telling me how I shouldn't have been the one to apologize, and he let another thing slip out. End of February, the bride's dad asked my dad in confidence if he could pitch in additional money for his daughter's dream wedding because he didn't think it was fair he had to pay more due to tradition. Just so that you're aware, Damas, it was $7,000 extra.
Okay.
My mom didn't know about this, which prompted fight number 1. My dad was pissed that I was the one to apologize, even though I was the one that was insulted. So he called my brother behind our backs and told him that he respects the fact that she will be his wife and his primary family, but how he also thinks he should have checked her for insulting me the same way he checked me for crossing a boundary. He then did what dads sometimes do best, go off with a monologue after keeping shit inside for months. He told him about the additional money that he gave, and he told him he wasn't convinced the overlapping events were a coincidence. Fight number 2 ensued. My brother called our mom the next day to tell her the wedding was off. All hell broke loose. We then couldn't get in touch with my brother or his fiancée for almost a week. Her mom then got a hold of my work email and emailed me saying I had ruined her daughter's life. I forwarded the email to my brother and he finally called me back. He said it felt like she wanted to marry for the wedding, not for the marriage. She also admitted to making her dad ask our dad for more money so she could afford a wedding flower package she wanted that was an additional $7,000, and she saw nothing wrong with keeping it a secret from my brother. She also refused to at least acknowledge my apology and to apologize back to me. My brother told her he would like to postpone the wedding and work on their issues, and she ended up calling off the wedding and breaking up with him. My relationship with my brother is still a wreck. He said he needs time because he loves her, but he understands she didn't prioritize him as much as he did her. Grandma's birthday bash is back on, and we're happy for her. She's excited as heck after the initial turmoil. I miss my brother so much, and it sucks knowing how heartbroken he is. But at least he's talking to my parents, and he has the rest of the family as his support system. I really hope we can rebuild our relationship someday. I'm glad he won't marry the wrong person for the wrong reasons, but it's awful being the trigger to his life falling apart, and I regret everything.
What a messy update that was. OP, do not feel bad for the situation that came from you asking a question. I understand how that might feel as the person looking in and digesting that entire story, that you might have been the catalyst. But believe me, if that's all it took to end a wedding before it even started, there was far more cracks in that foundation than just you.
I mean, the fact that this potential bride would take extra money and not even tell the groom, that kind of hiding and lying through omission is very bad on someone's character. Makes you wonder what else they're keeping quiet.
I guess at the end, what was going to happen was what was always going to happen.
I must say, though, $7,000 for a flower arrangement?
Mm-hmm.
I understand weddings are expensive, but no, I love fancy things, but I am too frugal for that.
Well, it may sound crazy. That's wedding norm now.
Gosh, I feel like I'm getting older by the second.
In my day, we used to just twerk.
Well, I do wish our OP the best. It seems like she's a very sincere person. In her comment section, she was saying how she was going to be seeing her brother and was hoping that they could talk it out a little more. And if not, she would give him the space that he would need, but that her and the family are there to support him. So it's good to hear that regardless of whatever drama seemed to happen, that our OP still cares for her brother enough to understand that he needs his space and she'll be there for him.
She's got a good head on her shoulders, and hopefully Mima's birthday went well.
I hope so too. Well, let's go on to our very last story and see what you think about Chick-fil-A. Today, I fucked up by eating a week-old Chick-fil-A sandwich.
Ooh.
I knew the risk, but it was convenient. Had been sitting in my fridge for a week. I figured at worst I'd get diarrhea, but lunch was lunch. About 2 bites in, I realized that the sandwich didn't even taste good. The pickles were totally dehydrated and were practically translucent. The chicken itself was looking gray. I didn't have to finish the sandwich, but I told myself it wouldn't be a big deal and to eat it anyway. Well, now I'm on the toilet. I'm pooping, but have the trash can nearby so I can vomit at the same time. I don't know why I ate the sandwich. It was not worth it. I intentionally didn't tell my spouse I was going to eat it because I know they'd tell me this was a stupid idea. For some reason, I really wanted to see this through. So cheers, and do not eat old chicken sandwiches. The too long don't read. I ate a week-old Chick-fil-A sandwich, and now my insides are pouring out of me like lava.
We've all been there, OP. We've all eaten some questionable things out of a refrigerator just because of convenience sake, and we've all had to learn your lesson.
But see, for me, the thing is, you think he would have stopped at the 2 bites when it didn't even taste good.
No, I respect him. He committed.
He ate the whole thing.
Yeah.
By the way, he also added on their awesome sauce. And he said it did not improve the taste.
I can respect when someone commits, okay? Regardless of what it is.
Our OP provided us with a very small update. I got pretty concerned about my health. I saw my doc and I'm good. I pooped/vomited everything out. Obviously, I shouldn't have eaten it. I did stop by Chick-fil-A after I left the doctor's office, but this time I got the nugs and a lemonade. I ate it fresh rather than leaving it on the counter for several hours and sticking it in the fridge for a week. Lesson learned, not eating any more old food at all, ever, for any reason.
Yeah, food can be very dangerous if you're not careful.
Food poisoning is so awful. I can't even begin.
I've only had it a number of times in my life, but I don't recommend it.
If I'm even the least bit questionable, I'm not touching it.
Oh, Voyse cuts it off completely. I'll look at it. I'll spin it around, see if I can eat it.
You'll smell it. You'll be like, it smells a little different, but I think it's fine.
I think you've had to push me off a couple of times because I've almost eaten some questionable things.
Yes. Yes, I have. Because you're different and I love you.
Built different. And I say that every time I'm sick.
No.
I also love that he doesn't omit that had he just asked his partner.
They tell him it was stupid.
We could have cut this off right at the beginning and you wouldn't have gone through these problems.
Well, this is definitely a lesson that he's learned, that's for sure.
Well, that's the best part about life. We get to pick our own adventures. Don't take risk with food.
It's not worth it.
I've learned. So, was that our last story?
That was our last story.
Finger licking good.
Oh, blech. No.
Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We regularly post on Mondays and Wednesdays. And on our Patreon, we have our Damas After Dark episodes.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool way to start your weekend, I think.
Yeah, as long as you don't eat any old food and get sick on it. We would also love to thank all of our Patreons for your continued support.
Yes, we love and appreciate every single one of you. As always, listeners, we look forward to hearing your opinions in the comments below. What did you think about the stories today?
Have you experienced food poisoning?
A number of times.
No, not you. We know you have.
I think the worst one is I probably did pull a homer because I remember not eating disgusting rotten food. I remember getting food poisoned. It was in my 20s. And then I just kept eating out at barbecue places thinking that if I just kept eating, the problem would resolve itself.
It does not.
I'm pretty sure you remember.
Yeah.
I had diarrhea for like 2 weeks.
You did.
It was getting sketchy for a minute. The things you learn though.
You don't. The whole time you didn't even tell me and you're just like, I just need to go to the bathroom again. And I'm like, okay.
It was rough.
You're different.
But we learn.
Okay.
We tell our partners and they can get us help.
You tell us a week later when you're like, my stomach's been pretty messed up and we're going to eat simple now.
Yeah.
And Damas hates just soup.
Soup is the worst.
It's so good.
What a waste of calories.
You're so picky.
And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.
See you on our next episode.
Bye-bye.